Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. It's January 13th, 2026. We're at the home of Rosa, and we're having a Bhakti Yoga Enlightenment program, and we're studying from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, entitled Sankhya Yoga, text 24. Text 24. Okay, so we'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Sa Nischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata Manasai Vendriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantata Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata Manasai Vendriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantata Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata Manasai Vendriya Gramam Viniyam Samantata. If anyone else would like to lead the chanting of the verse.
Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa
Yogo Nirvina Chetasa
Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamam
Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams
Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata
Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata
Manasai Vendriya Gramam
Manasai Vendriya Gramam
Viniyamya Samantaha
Viniyamya Samantata Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams Tyaktva Sarvan Asheshata Manasai Vendriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantata.
Sanischayena
Yoktavyo
Yogo Nirvina Chetasa
Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams
Tyaktva Sarvana Shesataha
Tyaktva Sarvana Sheshata
Manasai Vendriya Gramam
Manasai Vendriya Gramam
Viniyamya Samantaha
Viniyamya Samantata. Okay, we'll study the word meanings responsively. Sa, that yoga system.
That yoga system.
Nischayena, with firm determination.
with firm determination.
Yoktavya
Yoktavya
must be practiced.
must be practiced.
Yoga,
Yoga
in such practice,
in such practice,
anirvina cetasa,
anirvina cetasa,
without deviation,
without deviation,
sankalpa,
sankalpa,
material desires,
material desires,
prabhavan,
prabhavan,
born of,
born of,
kaman,
kaman,
sense gratification,
sense gratification,
tyaktva,
japa,
giving up,
giving up,
sarvan,
sarvam,
all,
all,
asheshata,
asheshata,
completely,
completely,
manasa,
manasa,
by the mind,
by the mind,
eva,
eva,
certainly,
certainly,
indriya gramam,
indriyagramam,
the full set of senses,
the full set of senses,
viniyamya,
niyamya,
regulating,
regulating,
samantata,
samantata,
from all sides.
from all sides.
Translation: one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utsahan nishchaya daryat tat tat karma pravartanat Sangyatyagat sato rite sadbir bhakti prasidyati. Quote, the process of bhakti yoga can be executed successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. End quote. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. Hare Krishna. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshvare Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Bhagavad Gita Chapter 6 Text 24 Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yogo Nirvina Chetasa Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamams Taktvasarvana Sheshata Manasaivendriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantata. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Hello. Vishaka, good to see you. Devin, Anasuya, thanks for being here. Hare Krishna. All right, so this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna, and he's talking about yoga. We mentioned earlier in the program before we engaged in the kirtan. Yeah, so yoga, like the English word to yoke, comes from the Sanskrit yoga, and so there's many types of yoga, and so it's all types of yoga, we just recited some mantras. For me, a main purpose of those mantras is that whatever I may say, it's not just David Wolf making up stuff that hopefully sounds cool. Okay, that anything I say is representing the substance, content, and spirit of Bhagavad Gita. Sure, I might share it in my own way with my realizations. At the same time, I'm aligned, and that's my prayerful hope, and that's what those mantras are about. And so many types of yoga. According to this is the source book of yoga. Bhagavad Gita describes many types of yoga. Bhagavad Gita it's a consolidated essence and summary of all of the whole ancient Vedic literature. Veda means knowledge, and so all the yogas lead towards and culminate in what's called bhakti yoga. So again, Bhagavad Gita and bhakti yoga is that thread that ties it all together. Otherwise, without the bhakti, it can all just seem some like sort of mishmash, hodgepodge collection. Oh, this is an idea, and here's an idea. So all the ideas, all the philosophies, all the yogas, all the religious systems, all the social system. It's all there. It's a complete amazing treatise. I've been studying for about 46 years, and so that's my experience, and as some of you have heard me say in different contexts, I've been in the summer of 1983. I was backpacking around Europe, and I stopped at an ashram outside of Florence, Italy. It was called Villa Vrindavan, still there. So anyhow, I was there for about 2 weeks, and I read Bhagavad Gita as it is, cover to cover. Read it. It ruined my life. So now I want to share it with you. Now it's your turn. Okay, so Andre is amused. Glad I could add entertainment value to your day. Yeah, and so it in the sense of like I had good plans for my life, and then like this made sense. I had to. Now it wasn't my first exposure, because for about 3 years before that, I was reading some of the smaller books of Srila Prabhupada, and I was consuming massive amounts of prasadam, which is spiritual food, which was purifying my heart enough to really absorb. And that summer I started chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra Japa, and I thought, like, this really makes sense. And so if I like to think of myself as an honest person, then I owe it to myself to because it gives not just a sublime, consistent, rational philosophy that makes more sense than anything else I've been exposed to. It also says, and here's an experiment. And that's why Srila Prabhupada often he uses the term a science of self-realization. Science, two pillars of science. One, a consistent hypothesis. It's logical, it makes sense. Just because something is apparently logical doesn't mean it's true. So science is, now here's an experiment. You can go into the laboratory and do an experiment and see if the results confirm them. See if 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen makes water. See if the results confirm the hypothesis. So Bhagavad Gita gives an experiment, and so I said, well, so okay, if I think of myself as an honest person, I ought to do the experiment. And then actually, so a little while later, a few months later, early in 1984, I moved into a Bhakti Yoga ashram in Ra'anana, Israel. It's outside of Tel Aviv. Rukmini was here a few moments ago. She was a senior member of the ashram there in Israel at that time, and so it could rightly be said. That it's 42 years later. I'm still doing the experiment because it's working. I'm satisfied with the results. Show me something better, I'll leave this and go with that. It's like a challenge I've been putting out for 42 years. So far, no one has done it. And so now, I changed the course of my life. In some sense, though, it didn't completely ruin my life. Meaning, what I believe of who can talk, I can't predict what alternate universes would create and that sort of thing. But let's say if I did not embrace with some sincerity this process of bhakti yoga as given in Bhagavad Gita, it's highly possible I'd be doing things like conducting transformational seminars and conducting therapy and coaching and maybe writing on those topics. It's highly possible. But I would be doing it largely without, to use an analogy from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, without the one that gives value to the string of zeros. It's a brilliant analogy, simple in a sense. Just like we can have our different life areas, let's say physical fitness, or what's our bank account look like? What kind of house do you live in? And what's your social status? And there's different areas of life. And so even if they're working, even if they're going well, but we know if we're lost to ourselves, right? If we're lost, if we gain the world but lose our soul, it's a biblical reference. Then it's all empty. It's dry. It's dry, and it's lots of suffering. So the one, that's that self turning towards itself in self-realization and turning towards God in a spirit of devotion. Then the zeros take on value. Put the one in front. Without the one, the string of 20, 50, 100 zeros is a big zero. Put the one in front, and then it becomes a trillion and quadrillion, a big number. Okay. So perhaps I would have been doing what I'm doing now, just without the one, and then without the one in front of the zeros and the pain of that and the numbness of that. Well, then so much of life becomes trying to run away from the pain of that emptiness, and then we get into the consumerist society and all of our avoidance strategies and like that. So for instance, this part of Bhagavad Gita, it talks a lot about the physical yoga. And when people hear the word yoga, that's maybe the type of yoga they think about the most. So chapter 5, chapter 6 talks a lot about the physical type of yoga. And the culminating series of verses culminates in Krishna saying, Yoginam api sarvesham madgeten antaratmana shadavan bhajateyu mam sameyuktatamo mataha. And he says, okay, so the goal of all this physical yoga, the idea is just control the mind, and so the senses aren't agitated. And Bhagavad Gita gives specific instructions. Sit with eyes half open. If the eyes are completely closed, the yogi might become sleepy. If the eyes are fully open, the yogi might become half open. It's the whole science like that. And Krishna says, but the ultimate goal is to come to loving devotional service to God, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is speaking the Bhagavad Gita. And there's jnana yoga, and the jnana means like the yoga of intellectual analysis. We can come to truth that way. Most of what goes on in the name of intellectual analysis probably takes us further from truth, like that. If we look, if we did a sampling of like the different scholarly journals in different fields, we might find only a very small percentage is actually moving us towards self-realization and God consciousness. But if it anything that genuinely moves and inspires us to realizing who we are as that atomic unit of sentience, that eternal atomic unit of sentience that inhabits the body and not the body, and servants of the divine, that's yoga. If someone is doing farming and that connection with earth moves them closer to self-realization in God, that's yoga. It would be called a form of karma yoga. If someone is doing intellectual study, or if some, many of you are, I recognize some faces from the Safato seminar rooms, and so we use terms like a communication-based approach to self-realization. Communication, so that we can call it the yoga of communication, and that's true. I mean, if in our communication with ourselves or with others, if we're supporting each other to distinguish reality from illusion, and to encounter ourselves honestly, and to live purposefully in the highest sense, then that's the yoga of communication. I mean, later in this chapter, later in this text 32, for me it's a classic empathy verse. Krishna says to Arjuna, Atmopamyena Sarvatra samam pashati Arjuna sukham va yadiva dukam sa yogi paramomata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. And Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. So for me, that gets to the essence of empathy. Okay? It's like, enlightened soul is callous to others. No, an enlightened soul, through consciousness of their own experience in all its nuance, happiness, distress, fear, anger, the whole range of human and spiritual, by that self-awareness, then we're able to be empathic with others. And you might say the vehicle, the mechanism, it sounds kind of mechanical, but it's very personal. The mechanism of empathy is that super soul connection. It's described. Krishna describes Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Videsha Arjuna Tishtati. He says that there's an expansion of Krishna in the heart of every living entity, even Advantarasta Paramanu Chantarastam, even in every atom. And so, to the extent we're clear, our mind is clear, our heart is pure, and we're connected with that highest guidance within, which it's God in the heart, whatever term we want to use, Paramatma, Super Soul. Then it's the same Super Soul manifested in different hearts, and then that's the mechanism through which we can understand your pain, your hurt, your suffering, your affection, your joy. So through that Super Soul connection, because Super Soul is in the heart of every atom and every living entity. And so we mentioned earlier in the program that it's like a cornerstone of this process of bhakti yoga. And again, all the yogas, all the philosophical systems, all the religious systems lead to pure love of God. That's bhakti. This is nothing sectarian. Okay, this is nothing sectarian. Everything here in this revealed literature, it's universal principles. And that's something that so much attracted me back there in the summer of '83 in the ashram in Italy. That I see, like this wasn't about like what group do you belong to on the same level of like what football team do you root for. All right, so the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita is called Srimad Bhagavatam. It starts with Dharma Projita Kortavitra Paramoniumat Saranam Satam Vejam Astravachu Shivdam Tapo Trayon Milanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahmuni Krite Kim Vapra Ishvara Sadhya Vrija Varuja Tekra Krita Bish Shujubis Takshana. It emphasizes completely rejecting all materially motivated so-called religion. This Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth which is understood by those devotees of God who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth uproots the threefold miseries. Okay, so yeah, it's like so yeah, it's like I am interested in knowledge, truth. Just like let's say if someone is interested in math, I just want to learn math. Okay, that's my goal. I want to increase my knowledge of math and the different branches of mathematics. Okay, but I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to go. I don't want to learn math from a white person, or I'm not going to learn math from a woman. I'm not going to learn math. I mean, I want to learn math, but not from a Russian. No, I know. I want math, but not if he's from Australia or somewhere. A black. No. So then I'm not so serious about learning math. Where's the best place I can get knowledge and realization of? It's in Africa. It's in Jerusalem. It's in Moscow. It's in Melbourne. And the teacher's in this gender body, that color, whatever. I want knowledge of math. I want to enhance my truth in math. Hello, Elliot. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Yeah. So similarly, like that's what Bhagavad is talking about. Like it's materially based so-called religion. If it's just like, well, this body. And I'm not. This body was born into this family, and we believe that. So then it's bodily based. It's bodily based. Now, if we do a study, philosophical, analytical, sincere desire to truth, and we found that a process of self-realization and connection with Source, and just like the most powerful process to develop love for God happens to be the process that happens to be connected with this body and this family. Okay. At the same time, actually, spiritual means it's not dependent on the material. It's not dependent on where this body was born. Not dependent on where this body. Otherwise, in the name of spirituality, it's just what football team do you root for? Yeah. And so, we mentioned. So this mantra yoga is a cornerstone of bhakti yoga. Mantra yoga is a corner. Mantra, like the English word mind, comes from the Sanskrit mana, and tra means to free, to deliver, to extricate. And so, so mantra yoga, it's meditation on transcendental sound vibration. I remember this was, maybe some of you heard me. Maybe last month at Rosa's place, I told this because this was, I think, late November. I spent some time with Bo Lockwood. Some of you may remember Bo Lockwood. He was in the Suffolk seminars not too long ago, and he's a close associate of Yogi Amrit Desai. Yogi Amrit Desai is he's based in the Ocala, Florida area, and he's in his 90s. And Bo Lockwood, he came to America like in the early 60s and became like a prominent yoga guru like that. And he's interesting. I mean, he looks very fit and alert and like that. It was a wonderful meeting for me. One thing, I entered into his home, into his ashram with Bo, and even though Yogi Amrita Sai, he emphasizes, he stresses the impersonal path of different impersonal paths of yoga, not so much focusing on the personal bhakti path. But I walk into his home, and right there, the main picture in the living room is a big painting of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, painted by him, painted by Yogi Amrita Sai. And then he showed me, he said, look, you can see Krishna's expression. He's so joyful to be with Radha, and you can see Radha's expression. So, so he has a lot of bhakti there, special bhakti. And he wanted to do cooperative service together. I don't know what will come of it, but it was a very sweet meeting. So I shared with Yogi Amrita Sai that I share about his connection with Srila Prabhupada a lot in different forums. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And specifically, I was referring to in January 1977 in Bombay, India, Yogi Amrita Sai, who I imagine was like in his 40s at the time, came and visited A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and Bhaktivedanta Swami was like in his early 80s, so like different generations of yogis. And it's a wonderful conversation. It's recorded, it's transcribed, and like that. And so Yogi Amrita Sai, because I use this in different programs, Bhakti Yoga programs, some Safato programs, transformative communication. And so at one point in the conversation, Yogi Amrita Sai, he talks about his guru named Kripa Luanandi. And he said at one point in his life, his guru, Kripa Luanandi, did a 12-year Mauna Vrat, a 12-year vow of silence. So as soon as he heard that, Bhaktivedanta Swami said, oh, he didn't chant?
Wow.
And yeah. And Yogi Amrita Sai responded, oh, of course he chanted. Oh, of course he chanted. So it was a very beautiful exchange. That because it was both like assumed that to chant the names of God, it's not a violation of a vow of silence. It's the fulfillment of a vow of silence. It's the essence of a vow of silence is I'm vowing. I'm not going to speak nonsense. It's not easy. Speaking personally. I'm not going to other vibration that just entangles us further in blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So, yeah. So to chant the name of God, that's the fulfillment. That's the real banyan tree. I'm referencing Bhagavad Gita chapter 15. Krishna gives the analogy of, he says to Arjuna, there's a tree with its branches down and its roots up. Well, where do you see that? Branches down and roots up. Well, there is such a thing. If we're standing on the bank of a river or a lake, and on the other bank there's a big tree, in this case a banyan tree, then in the reflection in the water, you got the branches down and the roots up. Yeah? Yeah. And then so Krishna uses a brilliant analogy, and so let's say it's a mango tree or a fig tree, so if we go into the reflection, there's no substance there. There's no substance. It's the same essential analogy as a shadow, a reflection. Okay, so there's no substance in the shadow, so that's material life. That's life in forgetfulness of who we are as eternal spiritual souls, as servants of Source, of the Supreme Person. So from a shadow, from a reflection, we don't get any idea of the actual, what's the substance like, what's the texture, we don't get any idea, but not that the shadow is useless. From the reflection from the shadow, we can know clearly the substance must exist. The substance must exist. The real tree must exist. If there's a shadow of a person, the real person must exist. If there's a shadow of a building, the building must exist. And so there's like the shadow, twigs, leaves, fruit. No, it's empty. It's a bunch of zeros with no one in front. But then, and actually, in the purport to those verses in chapter 15, Prabhupada gives what I regard as a brilliant example from geometry. He says, yeah, so because there are many philosophies where they rightly say the material world, it's all an illusion. there's no real happiness in material life, so renounce. There are many philosophies where we'll get that, and it's true and it's valid. And Prabhupada emphasizes, but that's only 180 degrees of the circle. A circle has a circle has 360 degrees. So 180 degrees, that's the reflection. But the other 180 degrees, that's the real banyan tree, and there's real mangoes there. And there's real figs, and there's real twigs and leaves and trunk and like that. So there's all this shadow. Well, we can do it with any part of life. There's the shadow romance. There's the shadow friendship, no substance. There's the shadow vibration, blah, 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 entangling us further in illusion. But then it indicates, there's spiritual sound. There's spiritual dancing. There's spiritual singing. And bhakti opens the door to that, to whatever extent we're interested. And so, and so it's described here in this path of bhakti. Prabhupada's quoting Srila Rupa Goswami from Sri Upadeshamrita, Utsan Nishchadaya Karma Pravartana. These are qualities that are helpful if we want to progress towards realizing what's the real banyan tree like. These are starting with enthusiasm, patience, determination, trust in the process, like that. Prabhupada defines enthusiasm as endeavor executed with intelligence. So enthusiasm doesn't necessarily need to look like cheerleading, rah, rah, rah. It could, but essentially our intelligence is engaged. It's in a grounded way, and we continue with determination whether things are gone the way we would like or not. So Prabhupada closes his purport. Similarly, the practice, this is after the story of Garuda and his sister Sparrow bird. Special story there. Illustrating the principle. Work, like everything depends on me. Pray, like everything depends on God. So this little sparrow was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm just giving 108% effort. And then higher powers noticed it and got involved. It's reminiscent of a quote by a philosopher named Hutchins, sometimes attributed to the German philosopher Goethe, but it's actually by Hutchins. Once we commit, then providence moves. So the sparrow committed. Like, oh, but it's impossible. The sparrow committed. I'm doing this. And then providence moved in the form of Garuda, the big eagle carrier of Vishnu. So Prabhupada writes, similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga, in Krishna consciousness may appear to be a very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. I'm reminded here of a story I just told yesterday, and maybe some of you have heard me tell it other times, or maybe just some of you are familiar with it. I told it as part of our coach training. Some of you were in our online coach training yesterday, Principles and Practices of Transformative Coaching. And so for me, it relates to this principle. It relates to this principle. A favorite example for me is the life history of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, of Srila Prabhupada. And so he was at like about the age of 70. He was penniless. He had the rupee equivalent of $7, and he had a crate of books. He had published some books, Srimad Bhagavatam. He had published in India, first canto in 3 volumes, and he was on a ship called the Jaladuta, which was not a luxury cruise liner. It was a cargo ship, a freight ship. He had 2 heart attacks on the way, some Srimad Bhagavatams, and marketing research would indicate there wasn't a big market for Srimad Bhagavatam. 1960s New York wasn't. Yeah. Okay, and so he was doing that to like the sparrow, to fulfill the mission of his spiritual master, in that mood, and to bring this bhakti mantra yoga, bhakti movement, Krishna consciousness to the West. It was described about 500 years ago by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Priti Vidyachayade Nagaradi Gram Sarvatra Prachara Hoyave Moranam. That this chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, again described in the Vedas, is the most powerful process for purifying the heart, realizing who we are, spirit, soul, not the body, and developing love for God. Most powerful process in this age. That this whole movement is going to spread to every town, Prithiviti, Akividad, Nagaradi, Gram, every town and village on the surface of the earth. So it was pretty much assumed that, well, that means India, obviously. And Prabhupada and his predecessor, pure teachers, Bhaktisiddhanta Bhaktivinoda, were like, no, it doesn't just mean India. It means Alachua, Florida. They insisted. It means England. It means Italy. It means Moscow. It means Melbourne. It means Los Angeles. And most were like ridiculing them. No, that's ridiculous. But that's impossible. Prabhupada would say, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And so, so he came to our, and it was lots of struggles. And anyhow, he went through, of all places, Butler, Pennsylvania. About a year and a half ago, Butler, Pennsylvania was in the news again. Some news. I'll just put that out there. But Butler, Pennsylvania, it's a pilgrimage place. Srila Prabhupada spent some weeks there in Butler. He gave lectures at churches. His first university talk was at Slippery Rock College outside of Butler. Anyhow, after a few weeks, he ended up on the Upper East Side of New York at the ashram of Dr. Mishra. And Prabhupada was outside in New York. It was cold winter, 65, 66. Prabhupada, saffron. He wasn't known as Prabhupada at that time. And he was wearing saffron robes. And he was sitting on a bench in New York City. And there was someone named Mr. Rubin. Mr. Rubin was a Turkish-Jewish subway conductor in New York, 65, 66. Mr. Rubin was apparently a very outgoing, gregarious sort of fellow. And Mr. Rubin saw, you see Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he sat with him, and he said, wow, the Swami robes in the middle of New York, what are you doing? And then, so this is all described by Mr. Rubin in a video interview about 12 years later, around the late 70s. And Mr. Rubin said, the Bhaktivedanta Swami described, he said, oh, well, I'm guiding and directing a worldwide spiritual movement with 108 centers, and we've published dozens of books, distributed tens of millions of books, and we've established institutes for the integration of science and spirituality and self-sufficiency, spiritually based agrarian communities. Now again, Bhaktivedanta Swami, he has the rupee equivalent of $7 and apparently completely destitute. And what's striking is Mr. Rubin described it like well, to use some transformative communication terminology, Mr. Rubin essentially described like there was no consciousness in the obstacles there. It was fully consciousness in the result, clear intention. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Mr. Rubin's friend, like, even though apparently he had nothing, it was just like, he knew this is manifest, not just separated by time. Consciousness in the obstacles may have sounded like, well, if my health is okay, maybe we can open a center. Well, if the money comes through, then we can do this project, and maybe if some people come to help, then we can open, we can progress on this. And all of the obstacles that could try to get in the way did. Money sources that were promised were withdrawn, severe health challenges, people who came to support went away, and with full, like the sparrow, in the spirit of the sparrow, Bhaktivedanta Swami, within 10 years, manifested all that he described to Rubin on the bench there in 65, and much more. So with that full, so it's both integrated, full like work like everything depends on me, single focused. That verse, Prabhupada said, that verse really is a especially impactful verse for him for Bhagavad Gita. It talks about single focus on one's spiritual mission. We don't see anything else. Single focus, and ultimately pray like everything depends on God. There's when Bhaktivedanta Swami he was in Boston Harbor, sailing across the Atlantic before he got to Butler, Pennsylvania, and then through Philadelphia, and then to New York, and he wrote some poetry. I highly recommend. He wrote 2 poems in particular at Boston Harbor or on the ship. Really moving. And then in one of them, so he says, he's writing to Krishna, and he says, because one of his titles was Bhakti Vedanta, means devotion and knowledge simultaneously. And he says, he's writing to Krishna, I have no devotion, I have no knowledge. He's really feeling that way. So for me, I can. So where does that leave me when I'm thinking, oh, I'm really devoted and I got a lot of knowledge? Prabhupada is truly thinking, I have no devotion, no knowledge. And if you want to make me dance, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. I'm surrendered as your instrument. On my own, I can't do it. So he's because like one imbalanced, incomplete approach. Yeah, well, ultimately everything depends on God. So I'm going to take a nap. We'll see what God wants. I'm going to watch some TV. So I'm just going to rest, and it doesn't matter what I do, because the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. So the Sparrow, Prabhupada, working tirelessly with inconceivable determination means nothing will distract me. And then, of course, the other side of it, if we think like the rugged individualist and it's all me, and we take the most important factor out of the equation, well, that's very incomplete also, taking the super soul out of the equation. Okay, I'm going to read the verse again, and then I'll be glad to hear any comments, questions, realizations, inspirations, doubts anyone wants to ask or share. Text 24, Bhagavad Gita. Sanischayena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tattva sarvana sheshata manasaivendriya gramam viniyamya samantata. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Hare Krishna. Thanks for giving your power of hearing to Bhagavad Gita. If anyone wants to share any comments or ask any questions.
You mentioned like take a nap on the couch.
So that's like the one thing you picked up.
That'd be juicy too. The nap was sounding juicy. So, and then like I was thinking, God's allowing that, right? And
God's allowing.
Not a blade of grass moves.
For sure.
And so,
Now, God's allowing, does that mean God's pleased? There's a distinction there. And anything, we can think of the most atrocious, terrible things that happen. God's allowing it. That's one. That's true. But then, that doesn't necessarily mean God is pleased.
and another, like thank you for making that clear, and I get that.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
God's allowing, but doesn't mean He's pleased. And also, I was hearing Prabhupada encourage, like, we must take care of our health first. Like, this is part of, I guess,
Thanks for that.
Needing
Yeah. And thanks. I appreciate your comments, Devin. I'm glad you're here. Good to see you here. Yeah, thanks for that. And Prabhupada did emphasize physical health. He didn't emphasize um, cultivating the illusion that we are the body. At the same time, the body is a temple of God. And just like there's a distinction between the car and the driver of the car, and we're not the car. At the same time, we want to take care of the car. We want to take care of the car. It serves us on our journey. And yeah, it's still like if I'm not attending to my health, I could say we, but I'll use I statements. I'm not attending to my health and fitness. And so then down the road, maybe tomorrow, a year, 10 years, then my sadhana is distracted and weakened because I got so much health issues going. Ultimately, the body will be food for fish or worm stool. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. This is just the result. It's just no. So, but now, and I'm saying because like both are true, and so thanks for bringing that into the conversation. So in one sense, the whole body is just a bag of pus and blood and marrow and like that, and so that's important realization to get, because although we can get carried away, my body is so fit and attractive. We can just like get completely carried away with material illusion. At the same time, the body's beautiful. The body is beautiful. I mean, like here's a laptop computer or whatever the most sophisticated AI thing. I mean, it's not even like 1/1,000,000th as amazing as the human body, or even the body of an amoeba. It's true. It's true, right? So the body is amazing. It is beautiful, and so like, okay, who created? No human brain created this. So like, wow, let me use this in service of the Creator. Let me take care of the car. And I know myself, it's true, like to the extent that I have a few drops of realization that I'm not the body and I'm a servant of Krishna, then as my life goes on, I become more and more realized about how important it is to care for the body as a vehicle for service to Krishna, to fulfill my highest purpose. Josie.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you for all these wonderful little chunks to digest. I forgot at what point you were speaking towards the beginning. Maybe it doesn't matter. Something came up for me, which was this whole thing of people doing things in the name of God that aren't necessarily beneficial for humanity or for the people, for any of the creatures.
They're not necessarily godly.
They're not necessarily godly.
Yeah.
But they sincerely one might sincerely feel that one is doing something in the name of God.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's actually,
It might be
harmful or something.
It might be harmful. If what I'm doing isn't with knowledge, I might have a nice sentiment, but maybe I'm doing more harm than good, and that's where knowledge is important.
Right.
That's where knowledge is important.
Yeah, and so then it also brings up for me this other piece, which is like, the way I fall asleep at night is pretending I'm asleep. Like I fake it until I do it.
You have your method. You have your method.
Right, and so like the way I get fit is by pretending I'm fit, and like then I'm like, oh wow, I'm like doing it. It's like the way I have cultivated. I'm wondering if the way that where I am in my process, like the way I'm cultivating belief and service to God is like being in the consciousness that I'm doing for God.
Okay.
And my concern is, I'm like, well, what if I'm totally off base and like in this illusion? So I don't know where the question is in there, but I think maybe what I'm looking for is an anchor I don't even, I'm just like, I could say I'm doing something for God and it could be
Yeah.
not.
It could
in
just
the
be,
highest.
it could be Josie's concoction and speculation. And,
Right. Right. And so I think that even knowledge can be misinterpreted. In
misused.
practice.
It can be used in twisted, misguiding ways that promote ignorance. And a little knowledge is a deadly friend. And
Yeah.
so many pitfalls.
Yeah.
So many pitfalls. So you wonder, like, how can we know what is bhakti? Because we thought, okay, bhakti is the goal of all the yogas, all of the religious systems, all the philosophical systems, social systems. How can we know if it's bhakti?
Yeah.
Thanks for your question. Yeah, so that gets into epistemology. Ontology is the study of what is. So there's the body, and then there's the irreducible quanta of consciousness that inhabits the body. There's karma. Bhagavad Gita deals with 5 principles. It's ontology. Okay, now your question goes to epistemology. How can we know what is? How can we know what is? So that's okay. Well, and that's a big topic. And it's something like briefly. So it's just like, yeah. So it's important to find an authority who's authorized and whom we trust. Just like let's say if I want to learn physics, okay, well, I'm just gonna do physics on my own. Physics, something. Ooh. Okay. But then if I want to, there's authorities on physics. I can check out different universities. There's a PhD program, and their professors they get published in the top journals. And maybe I'm going to get into that too. Reprogram in a course in physics. I get a book by a highly respected professor of physics, and it's not about blind following. It is about using our intelligence to approach an authority. And then we're in a class where we read a book. Oh, well, I read this, and the professor said this, but this doesn't make sense. Trusting that this is an authority, but not that we like pretend we accept if it doesn't make sense, but in a trusting way. Healthy skepticism, but not cynicism. And then we advance in physics. We could do the same thing. Like, let's say, if I want to get like really like a virtuoso on piano or something. All right, so just like, I'm just going to bang on the keys. That's music. That's fine music. How come you're not appreciating David Wolf banging on the keys? Like that. So like I'll find like music school, music teachers like that. So there are authorities in bhakti. I'll say without reservation, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He's top world. He's a professor of the professors for bhakti, and so I endeavor to learn from and hear from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and here's the thing, because related to our conversation with Devin. Hello, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Conversation with them. So this so this is, it's personal. It's personal. So because my edgy response to Devin was, yes, but is it pleasing to God? So Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote a lot of poetry, but one of his poems written to his spiritual teacher, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, there was one particular stanza that Bhaktisiddhanta Swami really appreciated, and it goes, absolute is sentient, thou hast moved. Impersonal calamity. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Absolute means God, the very substratum of existence, the very ground and root of our existence, of the existence of all matter and spirit, is sentient. Sentient means has senses. Sentient means has senses. Senses means there's likes and dislikes. Just like I have a tongue and I have a nose and I have an ear, so there's some type of sounds. I like that music. I don't like that music. Some taste I like, I don't like, because I'm a sentient being. So God is sentient. Means there are some things we do that are pleasing and some things that are not pleasing. Doesn't mean it's like harsh punishment. God always sometimes, oh, no, whatever I do, God loves me. Yeah, okay. That's not really an important question, to be honest. Okay, God loves me. Just like a parent will always love their children, whether a 2-year-old or 12 years old or 35 years old. My children are in their 30s. Okay, so the parents always love their children. And that means whatever a child does, the parent's always pleased. Why are you laughing? Right. No, there's some things that children can do that are very endearing, and some things like, I did not like that. We need to discipline you. We need to show some tough love. So it's not whatever we do, God likes it just the same. God will always love us. So Bhaktivedanta Swami, he knows Krishna personally. And here's the thing. Get to know Bhaktivedanta Swami. There's not really a mystery about what's bhakti and what's not. No mystery.
So it's like very guided. Like
Very guided.
You don't have any doubts in anything that you do in your life because of that relationship.
I'm clear. I have a lot of doubts about David Wolf. I wish I was more sincere to follow Bhaktivedanta Swami. So, but here's the thing: when I'm not following, I know it. He's very clear. Thank you, Josie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Balaram.
Yeah, just a comment on that. I was appreciating how Josie was formulating that question with the examples of working out and sleeping. Like those are things that you can kind of like jump right into. You don't need an instructor to sleep, right? It's an inherent knowledge. And I think what I was seeing in this conversation is there's these two poles of inherent and inherited knowledge.
Okay. Yeah.
And that bhakti, what I was reflecting is what's so wonderful is this bhakti joins these two, and while we have this very elevated philosophy that is very much this high level physics, it's not only in what we inherit, what we receive from a teacher that confirms our faith, but rather it's the meeting point. It's like if physics was something that you could experience internally, just as provable as sleeping or having a good workout, right? It's like bhakti is a science that it's not just that we're taking it for granted.
It's confirmed from within.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like the ultimate. It's not only just something that is within you, it is the ultimate personal experience. Like when I witness myself bringing myself in devotion, it's like that is like the epitome of something that is inherently known. Like something that's axiomatic. Like I exist. Well, if we can't form a conversation on the basis of my existence, like the fact that I exist, like we can't have a conversation. So in the same way that I confirm my own existence by the fact that I experience myself existing, I believe that bhakti is an even deeper truth than that.
Yep.
When we join this outside knowledge, it confirms the deepest level of experience that we have when we say yes to God.
Thanks for that, Balaram. Yeah. What you said to Krishna Prema. Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karya Udai. So this bhakti is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. It's not something to be gained from outside. And we've allowed ourselves to get conditioned, to use an analogy we use a lot, we allowed the diamond we are to get covered. And so through the association with the pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, that natural love of Krishna is awakened. It's awakened. That's why I'm reminded of in Prabhupada's purport, or his explanation of the Maha Mantra from the December 1966 Happening album. He emphasizes this Maha Mantra. It's not this Krishna consciousness, Maha Mantra. It's not an artificial imposition on the mind. It's the original energy of the self. It's the original energy of the self, and then it's awakened through this process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So it's both. It's both. So like so we get guidance, we get regulative principles of freedom. Not like in an oppressive way, just the opposite. It's freeing through the association of, say, a professor of a professor in the field. Through the association, then our natural knowledge awakens. And so that's I appreciate your integration of inherent and inherited. A little while ago, I was interviewed on a podcast by Padmanabha Swami, who wrote a book of that title. Okay. Thank you, Balaram. Yes, I'm reminded of a quote we've been quoting a lot from Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate said, "Safety is not the absence of threat. Safety is the presence of connection." So I don't know how Gabor Mate meant it exactly. I'll mention, not active in the past decade, but back 2014, 2015, Gabor and Mate, we had an active friendship by correspondence and Skype video in those days. And he read our book, Relationships That Work. He has many fabulous books, including In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, which is all about addictions and like that. Anyhow, it's a great quote. So, safety is not the absence of threat. So let's unpack that one briefly. This, for me, relates to where you went with your sharing, Balaram. Because we think, I'll feel safe and secure and peaceful once there's no threat. So it's a surefire recipe to always be in full anxiety, neuroses and psychoses, and crazy within all the time, and unsettled and disturbed and distressed, because that state of no external threat, it'll never happen. Life is difficult. Life will be full of threats from our own mind and from other people and the political situation and the economics and health. And life is full of the threefold miseries. So safety is the presence of connection. So we can think of connection with people, okay. At the same time, what's that most sublime connection? The most sublime connection, that's with Vasudev. Vasudev means Krishna, the all-pervading person. Vasudev, the all-pervading person, means with the very substratum of our existence, that personal connection that will never be crushed or annihilated by time. That personal connection that whatever is happening with physical health or honor or dishonor or the financial situation or praise or criticism or the death of the body, that personal connection that with the supreme person, the very ground of our existence, that's bliss, that's security. Everything else is flimsy, and that's inherent. That's inherent, and we awaken it through the association of persons who are experiencing, from their very presence. It's called Divyagan Ride Prokashito. They transform our heart with Divyagan, transcendental knowledge. Thank you, Balaram.
Is there a difference between Vasudev, Krishna, and Super Soul? So I'm interested because you're talking about connection, and often connection with God we look up there, or maybe on the altar of the deities. And I'm just wondering, about the difference between God out there and God within? Is there a difference? Is there different ways to connect with God out there and God within? And is there a better route if they are different things?
Thank you, Sylvan. I appreciate your question. Yeah, this gets into the Achinchya Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference. And so, Vasudev and Super Soul, yeah, we can use them synonymously. Usually, Super Soul, the Sanskrit name for that is Paramatma. We, the soul, are Atma. Super Soul is Paramatma. We started the whole discussion with that verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It translates as, "O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." So Vasudev indicates the all-pervading person. That's the Super Soul. And that's the Super Soul, existing within the heart of all living entities. There's different names for different expansions of Super Soul. For example, the Super Soul of the, let's call it the Metacosmos, the entire material creation, is called Mahavishnu, also known as Karanadakashai Vishnu, also known as Karanavasaya Vishnu. There's going to be a quiz, I hope you're taking notes. And then there's the Super Soul of, let's call it the Macrocosmos. There's the Metacosmos, and the Macrocosmos is just this universe. This huge this amazing universe. This is just like one mustard seed in a full bag of so many mustard seeds. But the Super Soul of this universe, call it the Macro Super Soul, the Macrocosmos, that's called Garbhodakashai Vishnu. We had some classes from the Bononos recently about these topics. And then the Super Soul of the Micro Universe, the Super Soul in our heart or in the atom, that's called the Kshirodakashai Vishnu, the Microcosmos. So it's all Vasudev. It's all Vasudev with like expansions, all Vasudev with different expansions, with different names, with different functions. And that's described extensively in a little bit in Bhagavad Gita and extensively in Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you, Sylvan. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, Rosa, is the next part of the program to engage in mantra in the form of japa for those who choose to participate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because at the beginning of the program, we engaged in mantra in the form of kirtan. So, Bhagavad Gita ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, you have beads.
We did.
Oh, okay. So I can. You have enough for everyone. Otherwise, I
We
can go
did.
in my
And
car.
Rosa has more. We got beads. We got beads. We're good.
Or I have both in my car.
Yeah, we have beads.
Yeah, beads are nice.
Sometimes I like to use beads that aren't my beads, because then it's like a fresher experience. It can become like an upadi. Oh, these are my beads, which so sometimes it's a fresh experience.
The difference with your explanation of Krishna and Vasudeva?
They're one,
They're one. They're the same.
but we use the term Vasudeva for particular functions of Krishna.
Okay. When he was in
Yeah.
form.
Yeah, Vasudeva is a name for Krishna that means the son of Vasudeva with a long A.
Okay.
So Vasudeva is a name for Krishna that means the son of Vasudeva, and we'll particularly use the Vasudeva name for particular functions of Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's clear.
Okay. Does everyone have beads who would like to participate in this process? Okay. So as we described towards the beginning of the program, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is described in the ancient Vedas as the most recommended process for self-realization in this age, for purifying the diamond of the heart, for realizing who we are as spirit, soul, and connecting with all of our inherent qualities of enthusiasm and joy and love, and cleansing the heart of lust, anger, greed, envy, deception, madness, illusion, and cultivating love of Krishna. It's described in the Upanishads. Iti Shada Shakam Nama Kali Kama Shanashana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,